Please make yourself known!
They called it chicken, but this wasn't food. It was cocaine, hidden in plain sight, smuggled into Britain inside boxes of frozen poultry. Behind it all, a criminal network that moved like a multinational business, slick, ruthless, and built for profit. Over £1.5 billion in drugs moved through this pipeline, and for a while, nobody suspected a thing. Operating out of Birmingham and beyond, the gang imported high-purity cocaine from Mexico, routed it through Europe, and concealed it in seemingly innocent shipments of frozen meat. What arrived at industrial warehouses looked like standard stock. What left, however, flooded UK streets with narcotics and left a trail of misery in its wake. But like all criminal empires, this one had a flaw. A single police raid on a modest home in Leeds uncovered millions in cocaine and crystal meth. From there, a sprawling investigation unraveled the conspiracy, linking drug drops in Blackburn, encrypted phone deals with Dubai, and drone deliveries to UK prisons. What followed was a nationwide operation involving surveillance, raids, and forensic breakthroughs. By the time it ended, 6 men were behind bars, and one of the UK's largest drug networks lay in ruins. This is the story of the frozen chicken cocaine gang. In every major operation, someone pulls the strings. In this case, it was Harsimran Singh, a man who lived in quiet comfort but ran a criminal enterprise that rivaled some of the most organized drug syndicates in the country. To neighbors, he was unremarkable. To law enforcement, he would become the linchpin of a £1.5 billion smuggling empire. Singh operated from Birmingham, a city with deep transport links, diverse business fronts, and an underworld that thrives in the shadows. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, but he was meticulous, building a drug trafficking machine that turned tons of cocaine into untraceable profits. His secret weapon? Frozen chicken. Working under the guise of a food import business, Singh's network brought in shipments of poultry laced with high-purity cocaine, concealed so expertly that initial inspections showed nothing unusual. Boxes were vacuum-sealed, labeled, and stored in cold warehouses. But buried beneath the frost was a narcotic payload destined for the UK's streets. He wasn't alone. Trusted lieutenants included Sarbjeet Singh, Jasdeep Dhillon, Jagrup Singh, Kuldeep Sambay, and Gagandeep Singh. Each man played a specific role, coordinating shipments, renting warehouse units, arranging logistics, and managing distribution. It was structured, deliberate, and for a time, incredibly effective. What made Singh dangerous wasn't just the volume of drugs he moved, it was the way he moved them. He kept his hands clean, using layers of couriers and frontmen to distance himself from the product. Surveillance showed him rarely interacting directly with the drugs, but his digital footprint told a different story. Phone records, encrypted communications, and financial trails all pointed to one conclusion: Singh was at the top, and the operation wasn't local. It had global reach. Cocaine was sourced from Mexican cartels, transported through Europe, and repackaged in the UK. Once inside Britain, it was broken down and distributed across major cities: London, Birmingham, Leeds, Manchester. The profits were laundered through a network of accounts, businesses, and cash handlers. Tens of millions vanished into offshore accounts and under-the-table deals. But all criminal empires have weak spots. Singh's was scale. The larger the operation grew, the more people it involved. And with every new recruit, every courier, every delivery driver, they took on risk. When one part cracked, the entire system began to unravel. And for Singh, the cracks were already forming. At first glance, it looked legitimate. Rows of cardboard boxes, shrink-wrapped pallets, invoices, and frozen meat. The shipments arrived at commercial warehouses in Worcestershire and the West Midlands, labelled as processed poultry bound for restaurants and wholesalers. But beneath the frost, hidden within tightly packed crates of chicken, was something far more lucrative: cocaine. This was the core of the gang's strategy. Over 15 tons of high-purity cocaine was smuggled into the UK under this frozen facade. The method was clever, almost industrial. Drugs were concealed in layers within the boxes, sometimes even embedded into the packaging itself. Once cleared through customs, the consignments were delivered to storage facilities that acted as conversion sites, locations where the real work began. One such site was a warehouse in Redditch, discreetly rented and fitted out for the gang's purposes. Inside, the team would extract the cocaine from the frozen boxes, repackage it, and prepare it for nationwide distribution. From there, the drugs were moved via van, car, and hired courier, quiet deliveries carrying multi-million-pound cargo. The volumes were staggering. In one transaction alone, police estimated that £14 million worth of cocaine was being prepared for onward sale. And this wasn't a one-off. Records showed a relentless flow of Class A drugs moving week after week across cities and counties, like clockwork. But it wasn't just chicken. The gang diversified their concealment tactics. In Blackburn, police raided a property and discovered 217 kilograms of cocaine, some of it hidden in Gouda cheese blocks, others stashed in black bin bags. The dealer behind the stash had already sold an estimated £17 million worth of cocaine between September 2022 and May 2023. His operation, though smaller, was linked to the wider network, a cog in a much larger machine. The gang's structure was decentralized by design. It wasn't one base of operations, but multiple: warehouses, homes, units, and front businesses. Each played a role in the movement, processing, or storage of drugs. Some members handled transportation, others managed product handling, and then there were those laundering the proceeds, quietly funneling dirty money through personal bank accounts and small businesses, washing millions through the UK's financial system. Technology played a crucial role. Encrypted EncroChat devices allowed members to coordinate drop-offs, shipments, and finances without fear of interception, until the platform was compromised in 2020. That one breakthrough would later open the floodgates, exposing hundreds of drug traffickers and their digital conversations. But the most brazen twist came from above, literally. In a separate but connected scheme, a drone pilot carried out more than 100 illegal drops into 11 prisons across the UK. With military precision, he hovered over jails under cover of night, using fishing lines to lower drugs, phones, SIM cards, steroids, and tobacco. It wasn't just about supply, it was about control. The gang kept their grip on the streets even from behind bars. They had created a system, highly profitable, ruthlessly efficient, and constantly evolving. But no matter how smart the plan, no matter how well hidden the cocaine, one truth remained: every operation leaves a trace. What made this gang so formidable wasn't just the drugs, it was the network, a sprawling, loosely connected web of couriers, frontmen, and facilitators who each played a role in keeping the engine running. From Birmingham to Leeds, Blackburn to Derby, this was a supply chain built for speed, secrecy, and scale. At its heart were the couriers, the people on the ground, transporting multi-kilo consignments of cocaine with military-like coordination. Some used vans with hidden compartments. Others traveled light, moving packages by hand, concealed in ordinary bags. Every movement was calculated, every route planned to avoid detection. The safe houses were equally crucial. In Leeds, one such a location served as both storage and preparation site. Inside, police found locked rooms stacked with cocaine, crystal meth worth £5 million, and the tools of repackaging: scales, heat sealers, and vacuum bags. It wasn't just a hideout, it was a hub. Beyond street-level logistics, the gang had financial handlers, often family members or low-profile associates. These individuals were responsible for laundering proceeds through bank accounts, gambling sites, and fake invoices. In one case, a woman helped clean £50,000 of drug money through a string of suspicious transactions, her only mistake, letting it pass through her personal account. But this network wasn't confined to the ground. It reached into prisons, quite literally via drones. Over 100 aerial drug drops were made across 11 prisons in under a year. The pilot, operating out of Rugby, turned contraband delivery into an art form. Using hooks and fishing line, he lowered packages containing heroin, steroids, phones, and SIM cards. The gang's reach didn't end at sentencing. It continued inside, keeping clients and enforcers supplied behind bars. Then there was the digital front. The gang made extensive use of EncroChat, the now infamous encrypted messaging service. Through code names and scrambled messages, they arranged everything: bulk shipments, price negotiations, even where to count the money. One chat detailed the movement of 100 kilograms of cocaine ordered from Dubai. The messages read like emails from a multinational, cold, calculated, and void of emotion. Each link in the chain believed they were insulated, just one part of a larger process. But as investigators would soon prove, it only took one broken connection to expose them all. And when that break came, the dominoes fell fast. It began, as so many cases do, with a raid. In May 2023, officers from West Yorkshire Police stormed a property in Leeds. At first, it seemed like a routine drugs warrant, suspected low-level dealing, maybe a few kilos. But what they found changed everything. Inside a locked room, they uncovered cocaine blocks worth £14 million, along with nearly £5 million in crystal meth, paraphernalia for packaging, cash, and multiple passports. This wasn't a local dealer. It was a distribution hub. That single raid blew the lid off a far-reaching operation. Within days, the National Crime Agency, West Midlands Police, and Lancashire Constabulary were pooling resources. Analysis of phones, fingerprints, and surveillance footage led investigators to a unit in Blackburn, a quiet spot on the edge of town. What they found there was extraordinary. The warehouse, located at a disused fire station, contained over 200 kilos of cocaine, some stashed in blocks of Gouda cheese, others piled into black bin bags. The unit had been rented by a known associate of the Birmingham gang, and records showed he'd moved 2,000 kilos of cocaine in under 9 months. It was a production line in everything but name. From there, the investigation spread rapidly. ANPR cameras, automatic number plate recognition, helped map the gang's movements, identifying delivery vehicles making repeated journeys between storage sites in Redditch, Worcester, and Luton. Each stop corresponded with a shipment arrival or major cash movement. One breakthrough came with a simple accident. A drone, used in covert prison drops, crashed inside HMP High Point in Suffolk. When officers retrieved the wreckage, they found SIM cards, drugs, steroids, and mobile phones, along with fishing line and hooks attached for delivery. Data recovered from the drone revealed it had completed over 60 missions across 7 prison sites. The pilot, eventually tracked through GPS and bank transfers, had been paid thousands for his services and was arrested alongside his wife, who had laundered £50,000 of his earnings. Police also zeroed in on the gang's financial trail. Cash counting machines were seized during raids in London apartments, one of which had £530,000 being bundled at the time officers forced entry. Surveillance footage showed gang members, young, inconspicuous men, bringing holdalls packed with notes, calmly walking into these flats as if they were visiting friends. Then came the EncroChat breakthrough. When the encrypted network was compromised in 2020, messages from dozens of UK-based dealers came flooding in. Among them were codenames and conversations directly linking the suspects to Dubai-based suppliers, cash pickups, and logistics planning. The digital evidence was damning. Dates, amounts, GPS locations, even images of wrapped cocaine bricks and product testing videos. Slowly, piece by piece, the operation came into focus. Singh and his inner circle weren't just moving drugs, they were coordinating with international players, using commercial-scale infrastructure and exploiting every loophole they could find. By summer 2023, the case had evolved into a multi-agency international task force. Surveillance intensified. Warrants were signed, and the moment came when police decided to strike. The gang had built their empire in silence, but now the knock on the door had arrived. It happened fast. In August 2023, after months of wiretaps, surveillance, and carefully compiled intelligence, police launched a series of coordinated raids across the UK. At exactly 5 a.m, doors were kicked in from Birmingham to Leeds, Derby to Blackburn. Over 100 officers took part, striking simultaneously at 14 locations. Bodycam footage captured it all. The battering ram crashing through doors, officers shouting commands, suspects caught mid-sleep. In one flat, a man was found hiding in the bathroom. In another, a suspect attempted to climb out of a back window before being dragged back in. In a single morning, the core of the gang's UK operation was dismantled. At the warehouse in Redditch, officers uncovered dozens of sealed boxes of frozen chicken still stacked on pallets. Hidden within them were bricks of cocaine, perfectly vacuum-sealed, untouched, waiting to be distributed. It was the clearest link yet between the commercial facade and the criminal empire. Meanwhile, in London, one apartment raid caught members mid-operation, bundling hundreds of thousands in cash, stacked in neat piles next to high-grade cocaine. A money-counting machine was still running when officers stormed in. The haul, over £530,000 and several kilos of product, ready for street-level distribution. Suspects tried to talk their way out, claiming ignorance or insisting they were storing goods for someone else. But the evidence was too detailed, too damning. Phones were seized, hard drives taken, ledgers photographed. Every corner of their empire had been touched. In total, 6 men were arrested and charged with conspiracy to import and supply Class A drugs. Several others were picked up for money laundering and possession with intent to supply. All were connected by digital records, vehicle movements, and the unmistakable fingerprints of a billion-pound network. For the gang, it was over in a flash. Years of carefully laid plans undone in one morning. The high-vis jackets, the warehouses, the encrypted phones, None of it could protect them now. What had once looked like a thriving import business had been exposed for what it really was, a criminal cartel dressed in commercial disguise, and the clock had finally run out. In March 2024, the gang stood before the judge at Birmingham Crown Court, surrounded not by associates, but by barristers, officers, and families impacted by the drug trade they helped fuel. One by one, the ringleaders were sentenced. Years of silent smuggling, encrypted orders, and hidden shipments came crashing down in a courtroom filled with quiet finality. Harsimran Singh, the mastermind, received a 24-year prison sentence. His calculated efforts to distance himself from the drugs failed in the face of forensic evidence, phone data, and witness testimony. The judge called him a man who operated with greed, precision, and complete disregard for the lives destroyed by drugs. Sarbjeet Singh, Jagrup Singh, Jasdeep Dhillon, and Kuldeep Sambhi were handed sentences ranging from 13 to 18 years, reflecting their roles in handling, transporting, and processing vast quantities of cocaine. Gagandeep Singh, described as a key enabler in the logistics chain, was jailed for 16 years. In total, the gang received more than 80 years behind bars. The message from the court was clear. This was not just business. It was mass criminality on an industrial scale. Proceeds of crime hearings are now underway, with prosecutors seeking to strip the gang of their earnings, believed to run into the tens of millions. Outside the courtroom, officers described it as a landmark case, not just for the scale of the drug importation, but for the layers of deception, the ingenuity of concealment, and the meticulous work it took to bring it all crashing down. The fall of the frozen chicken cocaine gang marked more than the end of a smuggling ring. It exposed the evolving face of organized crime in the UK. No longer confined to street corners or alleyway deals, drug empires now operate with boardroom efficiency, using commercial fronts, encrypted tech, and global connections to flood communities with narcotics. This case showed just how far criminals will go to stay hidden in plain sight, and how deeply embedded these operations can become in everyday infrastructure. From frozen goods to prison drops, nothing was off limits. It also underscored the growing role of international cooperation in modern investigations. Without joint efforts between UK law enforcement, Europol, and foreign agencies, this gang might still be operating today. But with £1.5 billion in cocaine moved under their watch, one final question remains. If this was just one branch of the network, how deep does the syndicate really go?